everyone, welcome back to PommyInOz. Hope we're all doing really well. It's Friday, it's football beginning of the week, isn't it? And obviously we've got the Carlton Fremantle game, which is going to be a really exciting one for us all. So please tune in Saturday, 7:20 and join me on Blue Abroad. If you are new around here though, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe. It does mean absolutely the world. We're smashing them out at the moment. You can take that a step further and become a member of the channel if you want to. No obligation, but it does really help the channel out. We do things like sponsor Dom Akoi, and we've got another sponsorship just in place, so stay tuned for that. Something very exciting, helping the community back with that one, someone you all know and love. And if you are a returning PommyInOzer, good day to you. Great to have you back. So let's get into this review. And we start off with a backstory, as we always do. And obviously, it's the tale of the tape for these two sides. Both of us 4-1, not much to separate us. Fremantle going along really, really nicely. And you know that it's kind of like, both of these sides are kind of like the anti of each other at the moment. The Fremantle are getting a lot of positive press. People are alluding to them that they're the Melbourne of last year, which is amazing, really. One of the top scoring sides in the comp, the best side from turnovers, and we know the media love that. They have built a real strong backline that's looking to really cripple sides, really. They stranglehold sides, and they look to really score launch really quickly from the back, look to really force you to turn over. And it's a very interesting one. It's not so much down the back they turn it over. Their strength is turning it over in the midfield. So when you are literally looking to transition, which is interesting in itself. A very fast-paced side, a very positive brand side, free-flowing with a goal score, with a percentage at the moment of 141. One of the top-scoring sides in the comp at scoring as well. They're a real threat for Carlton, with players all around the ground really popping up to kick goals as well for them. Casabene as leading the way, but you've got Frederick there, Lobb and Schultz. They're on 7 and 6 apiece. Switzkowski, etc. There's goals cropping up from everywhere, and even Brayshaw now is getting in amongst the goals from midfield. So they've got threats all around the ground and a very strong side. Carlton, on the other hand, real powerful brand of football, it has to be said, looking to really control the game, as showcased by the fact that they lead the way in disposals and effective disposals, and third for disposal efficiency. We know what we're like around stoppages and contests. Carlton are real strong in these areas, and they're really, really showcasing that anything that is about control of the football, particularly in the first half, Carlton are very strong at. And it's that old saying, isn't it? Styles make fights. This on paper is a side that looks to counter-punch versus a side that looks to get in the middle of the ring and throw down. And it's going to be a very interesting thing, especially for Carlton, that they're one of the most slippiest sides in the comp at being tackled. They're third last in opposition tackles. So that basically means they're the third hardest side to tackle in opponent tackles per game versus the fourth highest tackling side in the comp. Very interesting little snippet there that both of these sides will be looking to implement this. And what this basically says to me on paper is it's literally a game of who can impose their will first. Now let's look at the selections of what Carlton have done. Carlton really haven't shocked the world with their selections. Cripper coming back into the side. Not a huge surprise really in that avenue. Carlton look like they're going in with fairly the same side that they did last week, which makes sense, and it kind of fits the Voss ethos. What we've seen this year from Vossi is he is giving the VFL guys a go, and they do get maybe a 2-game spin. What is really important to look at is you look at Fremantle's only loss against St Kilda in a tight affair. This is again, and it feels like it's a repeat of every week at the moment, because it just so happens to see how we have basically come in, and it's another outside game. And this is going to be really interesting. What St Kilda did really well is get the ball away from the contest and learned to control the tempo. What they did is you've got to slow them down but then you've got to hit them when they're becoming in a contested battle. And what Fremantle do is they flood their areas. They really do flood around stoppages and things like that, that is probably their weak area. They know that. So what is common in that is they look to impact that area and try and wrestle control back. If Carlton can get the ball out, something outside, McKay and Kerno really do have a lot of success when the ball comes in wide quickly in the wide channels. And that is where Carlton really did expose Port in the first quarter. It was the first time we saw it, and it is a really important thing. I do enjoy the makeup of this side a little bit more. We did see that Carlton last week as well. There was a few guys with inside 50 tackles that genuinely don't do it as well. And that is going to be a huge thing, because this is really going to be that battle of wills, really. Can you get it on the outside? Can you get it playing quickly? And can you eliminate that work around the stoppages that Brayshaw and co do? And Carlton will feel that they are very, very, very strong. Very, very strong in that avenue. It's going to be a real interesting game, because Carlton also need to have that rebound 50 going. And there's the players there to do it. They're going to go up against a very, very strong defensive forward. A forward 50 tackling side. Switkowski is a guy that's really done well this year as well. And they've got a lot of players there. Schultz comes in as well, who's a real tackle magnet as well. And when you look at teams, especially the St Kilda game, that pride themselves on their forward 50 delivery and their tackles, that is a real standout where Carlton have got to really stand up in the crux. But I like the team. I do like the team. I think the team is correct for me. Following the VFL as religiously as I do, I can't really make an argument yet for Stocker and Carroll to come in. If they do it this week, though, I'll definitely be banging on the door. But I do like what we're starting to build. 3 continuous good games in a row gets you in the AFL, which I think is how it should be. Going on to the keys to winning then. Well, the keys to winning for Carlton really threefold. One, they've got to control the tempo. And that is something that Carlton have probably struggled to do, particularly in the last couple of weeks. And what I mean by that is I find Carlton go into their control mode way too early. And a common way to slow the game down is create stoppages. When Carlton have so little rotations, and it's kind of a misconception Carlton are unfit, I don't think that's correct, and there's no evidence that suggests it, other than, obviously the turnarounds. But the turnarounds can be something chronic. Do you know what I mean? There's many ways to skin a cat. I do think one of the big things for Carlton at the moment is that because it's such a heavy, high-maintenance game, Buckley did an article this week where he said that it naturally becomes a transition game, and you want a lot of rotation through that midfield to try and give you not A, options, but B, a little bit of a rest. And I do think it's something that Carlton need to build. Now, they are playing a side that really does like to throw people through the midfield. And to slow the game down, genuinely, one of the methods is either kicking it across your back line, kicking it out wide, or creating stoppages and trying to slow the game down and not letting the ball go out. Which is interesting because Carlton are really strong at that. Now, what Carlton have got to do here is not be forced into kicking into channels that Fremantle set up. Fremantle set up a lot of traps for you, and that is going to be integral. The second part of it is your ability to really stop that turnover. And that is where the midfield, and that is where particularly the small forwards are going to have to really, really put their hand up and put them tackles in. It's interesting because we're starting to build a bit of a small brigade, and 13 tackles inside 50 in the first 5 weeks of the season for Owens and Durden is quite high. It's above the AFL average. On the other hand, Fremantle have got 17 in their side 50 in their little pairing of Schultz and Switkowski. That is going to be a key there, that battle there. Carlton have got to really stop any form of transition and really make sure that the midfield is really applying the pressure and using the ball well. Third part is the George Hewitt, Chera, Walsh, Cripps combination. What these guys have got to do is really grab the game by the scruff of the neck. And what you found in the second halves of the last 2 games, Cripps excluded because he wasn't there last week, but they generally set the tone on the ball movement. And Hewitt is someone who really does stand out when the crux is down because he looks to play the ball backwards with a handball he looks to retain possession. Some of the other players, Walsh has been guilty of this, Chera has been guilty of this as well. And that is just booting the ball forward, really just smashing it forward and not having much control. And that is a real important area for Carlton there, that you've got, Cripps alluded to it in the week, that the leaders have to grab the game, and that is going to be a really interesting thing, that can they do it? Because I don't think we will see a tag. And for them, they're going to be looking at Brayshaw, and Brayshaw has been real dominant. He's been aided very well as well by their players around him, particularly players like Akers and players like O'Driscoll have had minutes in there, but they've done really well. What Carlton have got to do there is, I think, have a run with Rowe, and I expect Walsh to run with him, knowing that we've got Hewitt in the locker. The third way that both sides are going to be looking to get the dominance is the rucks. Both of these ruckmen are really going and knocking on the door, really, of breaking that top 5. Darcy has been, for me, one of the best ruckmen in the comp this year, and Pitt has really, really worked on his ruck craft. Now, Darcy versus PeterV is a really interesting matchup for me, because this is where the crux is done. Carlton's numbers in that centre are so much better with a ruckman that's not as dominant, and that is going to be interesting because it's about alleviating his roles. Now, the other guy that they've got is Rory Lobb, and this is the kind of role that I think TDK is built for at Carlton, and it's what they're trying to do. And it's his ability to roam around the ground, particularly resting up forward, that really creates that question mark for players like Libbojrjr and Whittaker. Obviously, they only have one true tall in Matt Taberner, and it's really important they do that. But when he goes there, it does cause chaos, and it's really weird when you watch it, particularly last week you saw it as well. When he rests forward, even though there's 2 keys and they're like, all right, we've got Tab, this is fairly easy, that addition kind of causes chaos. So that's where Carlton have got to really look for it, because what players like Darcy, when he rests forward, and Lobb have shown is their ability to bring it down to their crummers, Walters, Schultz and Switkowski, is phenomenal. It's something that Carlton have got to really keep an eye on. What will happen if? Well, obviously, I think if Darcy starts to get massive dominance, eventually with hit-out dominance, it kind of shows, and you do it, as shown with Gold Coast. That kind of levels of dominance Rory Lobb can do. Do I think he can do that against PeterV? No, I don't think he can. But obviously that gives them a huge, huge advantage, and that is where something they'll be focusing on. If they can stay at his feet in them ruck contests, they will be able to wrestle the control of the corridor away from Carlton where Carlton wants it. Another one as well is if the battle of the young kids, Walsh versus Brayshaw, at times you're going to have to look to tag these 2 players. It's about who can hold off the longest. Brayshaw's been in a real good vein of form, but Walsh is starting to return to that real ball accumulating ability. And what Walsh does, what's not really thought of, is the channels that he runs with the ball create space away from him. And there's a lot of times that Hewitt, particularly when he's received that handball, has exploited that space. On the other token, Brayshaw is a very crafty footballer and has really taken over that mantle with 5 out. That is going to be a danger for Carlton. He's a very good user. He's got a real direct kick on him as well, and he looks to take the game on. Another game within a game is Carlton's turnover rose this year. However, not committing a lot of turnovers. When they do, they are in hot zones for danger, and it's really interesting to note that Carlton aren't a bad disposal side. The 3rd highest disposal efficiency in the comp via percentage. Obviously the most effective disposals and the most disposals because that's our game. Very interesting, because when you hold the ball against a side that looks to be turnover heavy, see the preview for Hawthorn. That is a risk, because if you don't quite do it, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. And these guys are turning the ball over in the midfield. That is what Freo's specialty is. It's not rebound 50, traditional transition turnover. It's the fact that they really do pack that midfield with their taller timber and look to intercept anything, particularly that kick inbound. That is where Carlton are going to have to do. If that starts to happen, where Carlton starts to overuse and go to that kind of higher handball game, which we saw in the stats last week in the 3rd and 4th quarters, where they really do shelve, particularly in the 3rd, they start to panic and start to bomb kick, that is game over. Carlton have to apply themselves and stick to their plan, which is that 1.5 handball to kick ratio, which is the happy medium. And the final thing, what will happen? Small forwards. I think whoever can maximise their inside 50s, because I really do think this is going to be a free-flowing game to an extent. It's about maximising your conversion, and that is where Corey Durden, Owens, JSOS, and Mr. Jack Martin will have to be on point. When that ball gets in and it isn't marked, it has to be locked in. And that is a key component. Both sides are very proficient about this, and it is going to be not the big boys that take the raps. I think it's going to be the smaller guys that maximise these chances. All in all, I think it's going to be a tough game. I'm going to go with Carlton by 7. I think it's going to be a tight game. I think the psychological edges with Carlton, which isn't really talked about this week, that is what Carlton have, the psychological edge. It's the first time for a couple of weeks we've played a side that we know we can beat. It's going to be a ripping game. Hope you join me on Saturday. And until next time, Pommy out.